brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
All right. We will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the December 14, 2020 meeting of the Eau Claire Planning Commission, the last meeting for this year, I guess it is. We'll begin by calling the roll. Commissioner Seymour. Here. Grenholz.
Here.
Granlund.
Here.
Gregor.
Here.
Christopherson.
Here.
Rosnick.
Here.
Wolfram.
Here.
Ovade.
Here.
And the chair is present. I should have heard this month beforehand, but we'll do it now. So this meeting is being broadcast live by Valley Media Works on Charter Channel 994, WRFP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The Planning Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner with the constraint that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and business-like fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, and then others, if there's a public hearing, either for or against the proposal, are each permitted to speak once. We request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent in the use of time. We want to be sure that we have an adequate time to review and discuss all items with equal diligence. And we ask that if you're logging in to participate in the meeting tonight, that you will be in a place where without background distractions while you're speaking. We have been having some problems with the ability to unmute attendees to our meeting. So if you are calling, let's see, I see Dan Chase, I sent a private message to. If you could call in by telephone, it would be very helpful for us, because I know you're going to be speaking on the public hearing for the conditional use permit. And we've been, next item is the approval of the minutes. We've been informed by the City Attorney's Office that we need to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from last week? Mr. Seymour.
Thank you. So moved.
And Commissioner Grenholz.
Second.
Okay. And I'm going to try this and push you out a little bit. Is there any objection to the approval of the minutes? Mr. Grenholz, your hand is still up, but I think that's it.
Apologies, I'll try and lower it.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
All right. Seeing no objection, the minutes are approved. Item number 4 is the open public comment period for items that do not appear on the agenda as noted in the public hearings for public discussion. So if anyone is calling in to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight, we welcome your input right now. Okay. I see if you're logged in, there should be an ability to raise your hand. I see none. That takes us to item number 5, which is a public hearing for approval by the Planning Commission for conditional use permit in detached garage at 5503 South Shorewood Drive.
Good evening, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, along with members of the public. This map was not provided in your packet, but I wanted to show it because it does show the location pretty well. This applicant and property owner Dan Chase has been through, this is his third and final meeting for this request. The property is located along the Central River, along Sherwood Drive, northeast of the Northwest Community Park, also east of Jeffers Road, north of the North Crossing. Notification map of the 300-foot buffer for not only this commission, but also the Zoning Board of Appeals, which met last week on this topic. Now they met for the house and for the detached garage, but this evening we're reviewing the detached garage. In your packet too was provided the contours of the lot showing the proposed lot, or the existing lot, and also the existing contours which the ravine significantly encroaches onto the lot, and that was the request for the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow for encroachment of the setback from the top of the bank, as you can see on the screen. Also a map showing the 20 to 30% slope, which is from the Eau Claire County GIS department, showing the uniqueness of the slope of the land along the Chippewa River. In your package shows the proposed single-family home, along with the well and septic, and along with the 30 by 40 detached garage. The applicant is requesting as a conditional use permit to review and approval this evening for the detached garage to be a 30 by 40 or 1,200 square feet with an overall height of 24 feet tall. The proposed attached garage is a typical three-car garage, approximately 1,008 square feet. The total garage area would be 2,208 square feet. Those are all approximates that might have a little, roughly an estimate. The maximum for a garage is allowed to be 1,000 square feet, and a combination thereof of 1,500 square feet for attached and detached garage. Also, the height limitation for a detached accessory structure is 18 feet to the peak. This application was reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals on their December 8th meeting to allow for the encroachment of the detached garage and single-family home. The reason why that is an encroachment is it's 40 feet from the top of the bank. The commission of the Zoning Board of Appeals approved it as a 10-foot setback, but with the conditions that, as noted in the report, that the proposed existing or exterior facade of the proposed home and the proposed detached garage match the siding, the roof material, and garage doors. So that was one of the conditions that the Zoning Board of Appeals had put on there. The Waterways and Parks Commission also reviewed both variances and requests. They did recommend denial, but the Zoning Board ultimately approved it. The zoning of the property is zoned R1A. On the screen shows the proposed septic and well for the property because there is no sewer and water utilities available for this home. The site is a vacant parcel. Here is showing the proposed detached garage, and the square footage is 30 by 40 as mentioned before. And again, here is the elevation showing. Now this picture isn't the greatest, but the facade would have to match, as approval of the variance would have to match the proposed home that Mr. Dan Chase is proposing. The neighborhood was notified of it. The applicant did go around to talk with all the neighborhoods and the property owners across the street. There was no objection to it. They actually signed an approval petition from the neighborhood to allow for the variances and the garage and the single-family home. The reason why the applicant is proposing the layout that is shown on the screen now is that will minimize the clearing of the trees. This lot, some of you may have went out there. Myself and the applicant did walk the property a few months back. It is probably one of the most unique lots inside the city of Eau Claire. I would like to call it city country. It is a very unique lot. It's 1.9 acres of total land area. However, only about half an acre of that is buildable. After you take out the septic and well and where the home is placed, strategically on the lot, it is minimizing the opportunity to clear cut and is minimizing the clearing of the lot. As you can see on the screen right there, that is a heavily wooded property along the Chippewa River. The applicant home will be approximately 130 feet from the river bank. The detached garage will be significantly farther away than that. It is at a 30-foot setback along Sherwood Drive, which is in compliance with the setback. They are allowed to put a detached structure in a front yard along the river lot. Now, that is unique within the ordinance, but that is permitted with meeting the setback. So this evening, the commission will need to review and approve with the condition as mentioned. The applicant will use this garage to store vehicles. He also has an RV that he would like to store inside of the garage, along with a pontoon boat. The reason why the overhead door and the height of the proposed garage is at a 24-foot is to allow for clearance of that RV. Again, the Zoning Board of Appeals did approve this request last week at their meeting on Tuesday. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Any questions from the commission for Mr. Petrie? Mr. Gregor.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Mr. Petrie, the Waterways and Parks Commission, you said reviewed this. Can you explain a bit about their conversation and could you repeat the outcome of that?
Yes, so the Waterways and Parks Commission reviewed it. The reason why is because it's along the water. They typically do not review a single-family structure. The ordinance notes a 40-foot setback from the top of the bank. As shown on the screen here, the way the placement of the home is and the detached garage, the home would be 12 feet from the top of the bank to the screened-in porch. The primary structure will be 16 feet back from that, or at 28 feet. The detached garage is approximately 10 feet from the top of the bank. As you can see on the screen here, the large ravine area encroaches significantly onto the lot. If the Zoning Board of Appeals did not recommend approval or did not approve the variance, then the applicant would have to move that garage away from the entire northwestern part of the lot because that would all be deemed non-buildable because a 30-foot setback from the road and a 40-foot setback from the ravine or top of the bank. There's not a distance there to make that garage work. With that all being said, this commission would just be reviewing the sizes of the garage and the overall height. The Waterways and Parks Commission broke it down into two variances and voted separately. It was a tie vote for the detached, or for the single-family home, and I believe it was 2 to 8 for the detached garage. With that all being said, the Zoning Board of Appeals, in the end, has the authority to approve a variance from the top of the bank, and they did approve it 5-0 last Tuesday.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for the commission for Mr. Petrie? Commissioner Gregor.
Thank you, Chair Larson. This is about the neighboring property to the north. So, like, I see there's a tennis court. I don't know if we know anything about that, but and it's maybe not really relevant. But it's a land use, close to the road, and I guess I'm just not sure what we know about that or.
Yeah, excellent question, Councilmember Gregor. That tennis court is no longer there. Actually, when this was platted, subdivided by a certified survey map, that was a tennis court. That actually is now a single-family home that was built there by the developer, and that tennis court is no longer there. So that would be a single-family dwelling unit now.
Okay, thank you.
And I do apologize, our aerials, even the county aerials from 2018, as you can see, there is no home there, but this area has changed significantly since this aerial was taken. There is currently a home constructed on lot 7. I would just note that was clear-cutted All the trees are gone from that lot, and the home is currently under construction.
Mr. Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry that I did not hear that, did you hear any responses from the, neighborhood notice?
We did, and there was, a few support for the variance, and then also the applicant went around on a Saturday to get signatures for the entire neighborhood, and he can speak more to that. Now, the reason why that was not provided in this packet, it was regarding the variance. And he can speak, Dan Chase, the applicant, can speak to that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? All right. Once again, you're having the same problem with my inability to unmute attendees, even though I make them.
You made him a panelist?
I made him a panelist, and I still can't unmute. So, I did get a message from Sam Chase.
Yeah, that's his son.
And, I think, you know. Here we go. He says, hello, this is Sam Chase. I am Dan Chase's son, also a neighbor. Our family has a long history in this neighborhood, and we care deeply for our neighbors, land and wildlife. My father especially cares for the land in the neighborhood. A precedent has been set in the neighborhood as to others on the street have pole barns and attached garages of a much larger size than proposed by my father. I believe this proposal makes the property more usable for my father and keep vehicles and other things protected and out of use of the neighbors. I support the proposal and thank the commission for your time. Dan Chase, I am not able to unmute. And have you heard anything from the Chases, or maybe they could send me a message as to what their timeline is?
Yeah, my understanding is they are in the process, they purchased a lot, is my understanding, and then also they currently have a home outside of Menominee, and they're relocating to Eau Claire. In my understanding, they want to start this project in the spring of next year, so 2021, and then they would move in the summer of 2021. They also sold their lake home in northern Wisconsin and then relocate to this spot.
All right. Here's what I'm tempted to do, because the technology problem is a hindrance every meeting. I'm tempted to postpone this until the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have the technology answer where people can be unmuted and participate in the meeting. Okay.
That would be.
I see myself doing that with every public hearing until the technology is fixed.
Sure.
To be honest with you.
I understand, Chairperson. I can tell you the way I ran this meeting last week during the Zoning Board of Appeals, I was the chair user, and for some reason that surface doesn't allow for you to unmute, and I don't completely understand it. I don't think our IT
can't have a public hearing unless you can unmute people.
I totally understand with you, and that would be your call.
Well, I'm going to move that we postpone.
Okay.
Is there a second? Commissioner Seymour?
Thank you. I would second that motion, and I'm sympathetic to the chairperson's issues. And I think we really have to sort this out if we're going to carry these meetings on. So maybe we need to get a anyway, I second, the chairperson's, motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Oh, Mr. Allen? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Is there any opportunity for the applicant to call in as we did with CVTC at the last meeting?
I sent a message asking him to call in, he has not called in yet. I don't know how familiar these people are with the technology, but that's not going to be an answer to this problem every week.
Well, as we're sitting here, I do see Dan Chase is all of a sudden identified as having audio. I don't know if there's a way to unmute him now.
Hello?
Is this Dan Chase?
This is Dan Chase, speaking, trying
Great.
to,
I hate to be this way, Mr. Chair, but you do have a motion on the floor.
I know. Let's hear from Mr. Chase while we have him, and then we can decide on the motion. I will withdraw the motion at this point. How about that?
Okay.
We'll listen to Mr. Chase. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Petrie said? Were you able to hear him?
I think Mr. Petrie did a very good job of explaining the situation. We purchased this lot. We purchased this lot about a year ago and have been working with a builder since then. We knew it was a very special lot. I apologize for if you can hear that dog in the background. I won't get it up. We're very familiar with this area. We actually, my family moved here, my parents' family moved here in 1970 and made the house where my son currently lives permanent residence. We were the first ones year-round down in this area. We've been working with the builder to figure out how to put a house on this lot, our retirement lot. We were originally going to put it up by the river, roughly 75 feet from the river, essentially to the east, the southeast of where the current house is located. But that lot is only 86 feet wide. There's a house that's being built there, and to maximize privacy, we moved it in to a lot more. We're roughly 130 feet from the river now, to the east of us, and it's a significant distance from the property line as well. The ravine has proposed a hardship as to where I can put a garage that would house my motorhome. Our intent here is to use the existing driveway, minimizing removal of trees as much as possible. And so one of the things I did was I went and talked to every neighbor in this South Shorewood Drive area and got signatures from them. I've provided them to Ryan. And this includes the people directly across the street from it. The zoning board of appeals was quite concerned about the two houses that you now see on your screen. We've talked to them and gotten their support to build this structure there. We would be minimizing the trees removed in that area. It's hard to see the driveway in this. There's a very narrow pathway through the trees up to along the ridge. But that's our plan. We've been working on it. Our plan in the future is to start building in the spring. And so we're continuing to work with our builder to finish and complete the design. If there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Chase? Mr. Wolfram?
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. This is not a question, but Mr. Chase, I just wanted to express appreciation for how intentional you were in including your neighbors. Thank you.
Any other?
Yes, we definitely want to make sure everybody's got a say. I took suggestions as well. The form that I asked them to read what I was doing, showed them the designs and the locations, as well as asked them for any input they might have, and received those.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Christopherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chase, in your application, I was very taken by your real affection for this property and the wooded area. I'm also appreciative of how you're really guarding the view that the neighbors have from across the street. And I just wanted you to know that I thought that was really an excellent use of this property. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the commission? Mr. Greger?
Thank you, Chair Larson. Thank you, Mr. Chase. I do also want to show my appreciation for the outreach you've done with your neighbors, and obviously I think that comes along with your long history in the area. My question is about that. Looks like there's 30 feet between the building and the street. Are you going to be able to maintain a certain number of trees there, or what are you kind of envisioning? I know there's a power line that goes through there too, so just wanted to kind of get a sense of how screened this garage at this size would be from the street.
Our plan is to leave any trees between the street and the building. I don't want to clear cut it like the two lots to the south have been. As a matter of fact, we'll probably plant additional pine trees just to hide it as much as possible. I agree with the buffer zone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mr. Christopherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was also going to ask, did you have any opposition, Mr. Chase, to having the outside siding to match your house, the siding and the roofing structure?
No opposition to that at all. I would like to make it look as a cohesive unit, the house and the garage, the outbuilding.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion from the commission for Mr. Chase? All right, I see none. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Chase.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this item? Mr. Seymour?
Thank you. I'll make the motion to approve this item with staff recommendations and/or condition.
Okay. Is there a second? Commissioner Wolfram?
I'll second. Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Seymour?
Aye.
Mr. Bremholt?
Aye.
Mr. Chase? Mr. Graham?
Aye.
Mr. Greger?
All right.
Christopherson?
Aye.
Prosnick?
Aye.
Wolfram?
Aye.
Obey?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And just as an additional comment on that, I'm serious. I mean, we're running a little, I guess you'd call it a mutiny. We can't run public hearings without the ability to unmute people. And, you know, we've got to have that fixed. Or, you know, we're going to start postponing stuff. Okay, that item passed. The next item is item number 6, a discussion, review of comprehensive parking study update.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight on the parking study findings and recommendations. This study started in 2019 with the hiring of consultant WGI to update our 2014 parking study, which was the downtown comprehensive parking study. You can go to the next slide, Ryan. This study actually didn't focus on just the downtown area. The original 2014 study looked at Area 1, which is identified as the downtown area, and then we added the 3rd Ward and the Randall Park areas as well. So when we did parking inventories of these areas, you can see we counted the number of spaces in the parking lots, and we monitored on-street parking as well. Next slide. As I said, we looked at the inventory in each of these locations. The data was collected while UWEP was in session, and it was pre-COVID, so we believe that the patterns were pretty normal at the time of the data collection. In the downtown area, you can see there are just over 4,000 spaces, and similar to Randall Park neighborhood, just over 4,000 spaces, with the 3rd Ward area having the least number of spaces that we looked at within the study. Next slide. So the data collection was done in April of 2019, and the public and private lots were looked at, as well as the curb space of streets. Staff took data collections during the morning and the evening of an average weekday, and then also on a Friday evening. You can see the area in the red circle is the area that's showing higher demand. Red being 91 to 100% full, and yellow being 76 to 90% full. So when we're seeing those red and yellow areas, those are the areas that are not really meeting the parking demand expectations of the users. Users typically consider an area full if it is at that 85% full range. So in the red area, visitors to the downtown area, or employees or residents of the area are feeling that the curbside on those red block spaces is effectively full during the morning peak hour, which this is showing. Next slide. This is the 3rd Ward neighborhood area, and you can see the institutional impact of parking within the 3rd Ward neighborhood. We looked at 2 parking lots that are both considered UWEC parking lots, and then the spillover of parking on street within the neighborhood. The red circle is showing that most of those block spaces are effectively full at this time. Again, this is the morning peak, and I think the morning peak was like 10:30 to 11:30, so it's almost noon that we're considering the morning peak as a high. And then the third area, the Randall Park area that we looked at, is really impacted by 3 different institutions. And you can see the circles which kind of identify the areas of each. We've made some parking adjustments in the past in the Randall Park neighborhood on the west side, west of 5th, where you can see some red lines and some blue lines where there's no restrictions and restrictions on different sides of the street. So we really have created some area for parking within some of those block spaces, where other areas or streets east of 5th or Bellinger, you can see that we have more red and that the curb side is effectively full. The middle section is showing the parking lot, all private, which are effectively full. And then the southernmost circle is really showing the curb space along Chippewa and near the Water Street parking lot of UWEC as being effectively full. Through the parking study, there were multiple listening sessions for neighborhoods and businesses to come and voice their opinions, their concerns about parking within their neighborhoods or the downtown area. And you can see some of the information that we gained from those listening sessions was a common comment of the lack of parking enforcement. And from the data collection, it really did show the institutional parking encroachments into the neighborhoods, as you saw on the maps that we just previously looked at. An online survey was also done. The 2014 study had an online survey, and I want to say that the respondents in 2014 was right around 600 to 700 respondents, and we doubled that with this survey. 30% were visitors and or customers in the downtown area or employees that work downtown. One of the big, I think, takeaways from this, the information on your screen was 60% of the respondents were affiliated with UWEC, and of those 60%, 50% were parking on street. Then it's just another good feedback and learning tool, or something that we have in our toolbox to work with in the future, is that 70% of the respondents replied that they were okay with walking 3 blocks or greater. So that is good to think of when we're looking at parking lot locations and our walkability within the community from parking lots to the businesses. So key findings, WGI broke down key findings into 4 different areas. Customer service experience was the first one, and they noted that our parking policies need to be developed with specific parking needs and user groups in mind. So our policies right now are not fitting the needs for the area. So it's something that we need to look at and update. But the parking meters are often out of service. With the last study, we removed quite a few parking meters in the downtown area on street. So we kept parking meters on Eau Claire and Dewey Street near the library because they like that turnover and having that not have to be 2 hours of parking there. They kept it as 1 hour of parking on Eau Claire Street. So parking meters within the lots are mostly where we are having issues with meters. Most of the meters are outdated technologically, and we can't get parts for them anymore. We do have some updated meters, but even those are aging very quickly. parking marketing campaign was discussed as a customer service experience key finding that we could improve on. A lot of communities are using, or parkers coming to communities are planning where they're going to park before they even arrive at their location. So they want to be able to look up on their phone where they're going, what's the nearest parking lot, how much is it going to cost per hour, or how can they pay, and things along those lines. So having that information readily available to our customers is customer service experience finding that WGI helped. Technology, I kind of touched on this with our meters, but our parking technology is outdated and unreliable. Even in the ramp, I'm surprised our Galloway ramp, we have gates there, and we do have a little more technology there than what we have at the Farwell ramp. But with COVID coming into the communities and our nation, we've learned a lot in the parking industry, and technologies have advanced greatly just within the last year. And we're finding a lot of people are looking for touchless options and ways that they can park where you don't have to go and punch in a license plate number or a parking stall number. So looking at some different technologies. And then as we update those technologies, it will be able to provide us data that we can make some business decisions and future investments into our parking inventory and supply and demand, making decisions on having that background to make the decisions properly. So, policies and management. Right now, the parking department is really multiple departments across the city. Engineering takes care of the ordinance updates and the day-to-day operations of equipment, along with the custodial staff and them keeping the facilities clean at the ramps and also maintaining equipment as needed. And we have police department enforcing the parking in the downtown areas and across the city. So multiple different groups within the parking, managing parking. And so the policies and decisions really should evolve with the changing demands in the area. That's identified as a management tool that should be looked at. And the structure, you were saying that across multiple departments right now, where if it were brought to one department, there may be some efficiency in doing that. Institution overflow parking neighborhoods. Looking at one of that was identified with the data collection as we discussed, but looking at policies on how to manage that and doing some further research with the neighborhood and institutions is recommended related to that. And managing supply, that brings us right into managing supply as key findings. Proximity between available parking and destination drives the perception. You know, a lot of times people will talk about the mall overlay in the downtown business district and show that if you're parking at the end of the lot, you're really walking more to get to your destination within the mall than if you parked 2 blocks away from the store that you're destined to in the downtown. So there's ways to make it seem that you're not walking as far, and that's part of the wayfinding, and then also just having that turnover on the curbside for people to park. looking at meter consistency in the downtown area on street, and even within the parking lots, it's not consistent. So having that data from new technology would help us to be more consistent. When we did data collection, it was at a time that valet was operating at the Pablo Center and at the Lismore, and really using the curbside as to operate their business. So looking at a valet ordinance was one of the suggestions as well, and improving our branding, marketing, and wayfinding to help the user experience of parking downtown. So the recommendations that WGI provided to us were short-term, mid-term, and long-term, and they build off of each other. So the short-term are kind of they're not specifically low cost, can be implemented right away, but they're things that we build on. So organization and management, looking at a dedicated full-time parking manager. Right now we have a part-time parking administrator, reviewing the parking policies and procedures, and looking at a market rate study to see if we're charging similar to our comparable communities, which was also a part of this study, so we do have some of that information. Strategic planning, this is really coming with the organization and management kind of side by side, determining the operational goals and the functional goals that we want as a business district, as a neighborhood, as institutions within the community. Looking at technology is another short-term recommendation. We've done a lot of research on the license plate recognition. That was one of the items to be actually implemented from the last parking study, and we did try to implement that. The vendor that we worked with, we just could not get it to work properly. There were some computer issues, there were some technology issues that we couldn't overcome, so we went away from it, but it is back again, and the consultant said it's been greatly efficient in other communities and highly recommends the implementation of license plate recognition, and really looking at customer service-driven technology. Marketing and communication, we kind of talked about that with the wayfinding, making things easy on our website, not having multiple locations for parking information because we have multiple departments that focus on parking, really having a branding and marketing campaign that's cohesive. The midterm recommendations expands on the organization and management and the strategic planning. It brings up the removal of the Farwell-Gibson ramp, which we actually are already planning for and have some steps in the process going on that. Looking at technology further, we do have other pay systems in our ramps that we should look at for technology. Looking at gateless options, payment structures for on-street parking, if we would want to go to a kiosk per block or a pay-by-phone option. There's just a lot of different technologies out there to look at and determine what meets the needs of the downtown area. The marketing and communication plan, they recommend using a GIS for web-based mapping, which many communities do, and this can give us information to the customers, to the people coming to park, saying that there's X number of stalls left in this parking lot, or potentially you can call and reserve your spot in the parking lot that you want to be able to park there from 4 to 9 p.m. on a certain night. So lots of different technology there. reviewing our ordinances. As we mentioned, we want to review those and make sure that they're meeting the needs of the neighborhoods and the downtown businesses. And then having a consistent inventory of our parking in the downtown area. Long term, again, it touches on strategic planning, ordinance updates, and the removal of the Gibson Farwell garage, and looking at the phasing and how we are going to provide parking during that demolition and reconstruction of parking related to that. And when we do rebuild that garage, do we build it at the same number, less or more stalls, in the same location or a different location? So the study really gave us tools to look at some of those questions and help us make an informed decision on that. With that, lots of good information, and if you have any questions, I'd be willing to take them.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions from the commission? Mr. Granlund.
Having experienced some overlap in other communities between their campuses and their municipalities, I think it's important to stretch the idea of centralized control to be a coordinated control between, especially some of the bigger users like that. I mean, if I know that in La Crosse, there's one system on the campus, and then they've got a conflict between what's a campus street and what's a city street, and they've got sort of two different systems overlapping down there. I would hope that we could avoid something similar happening, or if there's an element of parking control that they're exercising, maybe that can be encouraged to extend into the neighborhood as opposed to having a strict limit of where one authority would be monitoring. I know that it's clear that I wasn't aware that there's specific parking permits related to the hospital, but I would suspect they have a permit program that is driving some of their users onto the local streets, just as the permit system at the campus is driving some users onto the local streets. So it'd be nice to keep an eye on that. I know that I've used the system, the phone app for Minneapolis. It is extremely convenient to be able to renew the metering charge when you're halfway through dinner from your tabletop. So I would think that would be also an advantage seen as well, that you get a lot of user satisfaction when you can avoid any kind of a rapid exit just before dessert.
I agree. I appreciate that feedback. We have been working with the university and their parking administrator, as well as the airport, is looking at updating their parking equipment. So we're hoping that being three major users within one community, we can find something that all of us would be able to have hopefully similar vendors, so we can not have to have our customers, which really could be customers at all three locations, have to install different parking apps or deal with different companies every day.
Mr. Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Leah, for the presentation. I just would like to share a comment from a constituent, and I think it's true in our lovely city that we're urban, but we're also quite rural as being a regional hub. And I had an email that was quite emphatic from a young family that had come in on a weekend. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday for the Children's Museum, and there was no one parking on the street at all, other than they were parked to take their child to the Children's Museum, and came out, and even though there was no one else parked on the street, they'd gotten a ticket. And, you know, you can see that, but then you can also feel that customer service level just doesn't, you know, it feels like you sent somebody out just to find their car in order to do whatever you needed to do. So could you just help me understand what are some of the customer service features that we could pursue other than just finding where the parking is?
That's a really good question. I too have received a very similar comments on the weekends and then also time frames. You know, with the last parking study, we implemented a 2-hour parking restriction from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week in the downtown area. And that has really impacted the ability of people going to see a movie or going out for dinner and shopping or going to a show at the Pablo Center or anything. Again, too, the Children's Museum, visiting multiple locations and having to worry about them moving their vehicle within that time frame or finding a lot that doesn't have a parking restriction to it. So I think it's finding, working with the businesses and with the customers to find find the balance of parking and meeting the demands and meeting the customer service expectations as well.
Thank you, Ms. Nisk.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion from the Commissioner? Commissioner Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Larson. Thank you. Yes. That's one thing I wanted to highlight in this report and study is on page 31. There's the recommendation under policies and management. It says parking ratio should be explored by city planning to reduce parking minimums or develop an exempt district. So that's really, you know, I'm happy to see that in there, obviously, and it kind of tees off of what Mr. Petrie was saying earlier in our work session about that being a work plan item for next year. But that's really the only reference to that in here, other than, you know, there's kind of some of the obvious observations that there actually really isn't that big of a parking problem downtown right now, but depending on what we develop in the future on existing lots or large convention center type of structures, like there could be some issues. I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit more, just that policy and management recommendation related to parking minimums and creating exempt districts.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to that, more from the data collection side and the modeling of it. So our consultant built a model of the downtown area, and we're able to manipulate that. So if we're looking at different businesses going into vacant building spaces, if the zoning code were this, it would have this impact on the parking demand in the area. And so we can do that, different types of modeling versus different code implementations to see how it would affect the downtown area and use that information to help guide the revision of that code.
I guess this has a follow-up to that.
Sure.
The exempt district, what is exactly the definition of that? Is that essentially that there'd be like parts of town that maybe don't have a requirement or have a different requirement for parking?
That's my understanding. I can, let Ryan talk more to that if he has a greater background, but, to my understanding, that would be, that there wouldn't be an implemented parking requirement related to that area or that specific, business type or, whatever is identified as being exempt, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions from the commission? All right, I see none. Does anyone have anything to add?
I don't. If anyone does see any, parking technology that they like, we're always interested in hearing about them, or if you see any great ideas or ideas that have failed, we like to hear about those too as well, just so we can use them as learning tools. So keep us in mind in your travels.
Good, thank you. Good presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, future agenda items and announcements. I'll just comment again about the technology. We have no way of really knowing whether we're missing people who have something to say about our public discussion items, our public hearings, or public comment period for that matter, because we just can't trust the technology. And so, hopefully we can get that resolved by our next meeting. Mr. Allen, anything to add?
Well, no, I appreciate the feedback on that. Certainly, it's frustrating to everybody for that. One could hope we're turning a calendar for your next meeting, and it will no longer be 2020. So perhaps that alone will help things. But I think Ryan and I have a few options to look into. IT has been looking into it with, I know, the Surface tablet you're using there, Mr. Chair, and we're kind of chasing ghosts in the machine a little bit, unfortunately. So we seem to be working for other meetings, so I think we just need to do a little bit of compare and contrast to see what's not working here but is working in another meeting. And I'm confident we'll be situated well for your next meeting on Monday, January 4th. So with that as well, I should note too that we will hopefully be having your draft annual work plan for you to take a look at on the 4th as well. So that is certainly one agenda item that'll be forthcoming.
Good. I don't know if it helps at all, but when we started using the technology, I recall several meetings where I didn't have a problem. I was able to unmute people. And I think this is the 4th meeting now where it just doesn't work. So maybe that's something I don't know. Anyway, okay. That all being said, I think without objection, this meeting will be adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.